Hi everyone, my name is Mary Anderson. I'm the Director of Career Services at the College of St. Scholastica, sharing this presentation with you on writing resumes. This is the first of three presentations you can watch. This one is going to focus on the content and format, getting you started on resume writing. Our contact information is on this first slide. You're welcome to submit resumes for review at resumes@css.edu. If you'd like to make an appointment, you can always reach out to careers@css.edu and we will make that appointment for you. And then lots of other information on our website, css.edu/career. This is folks who work in our office. So you'll see I'm on the far right. Carrie Taylor Kemp is in the middle. She is our Employer Relations Associate. On the left is Andrea Chartier. She's our career counselor. Again, I listed those two emails again. And then on the bottom are our great student employees who work as job skills assistants in our office, and most likely would be the ones who might be responding to you if you submit information to the resumes@css.edu. When we talk about resumes, I like to pause just briefly at the beginning of the presentation to talk about the different types of documents you might be preparing as part of a job search process. So resumes and CVs generally are a summary of your experiences and education, generally 1 to 2 pages. The difference between a resume and a CV is a curriculum vitae. You might use that for graduate programs and academia. Those are usually longer in length and include more detail. Most of you will be preparing a resume for job search. Cover letters really is like your narration to your resume. It gives a bit more information about you, your skills for that particular position, why you're interested in that organization. 1 page in a written document. Personal statements are what would be used for graduate programs. These are short essays, usually 1 to 3 pages, highlighting your abilities, your fit for the program, your academic preparation that makes you a good fit for the graduate program for which you're applying. And then some of you might be doing portfolios for classes. These are collections of artifacts and documentation that highlights your skills. Might be electronic, occasionally as paper, tends to show the experience and then your reflection and learning and growth from those experiences. It's really a visual representation of what's in the resume. Okay, so let's go forward with the resume. In all documents, resumes included, you want it to be strong writing. You need to give time to proof your documents, have other people proof your documents, which means leaving plenty of time for writing drafts. And it's important to pause and reflect before you start writing your document. The length of a resume, again, typically is 1 page for new graduates. It does depend a bit on the field that you're going into. So some fields, nonprofits, education, healthcare, might look at 2 pages if you really have enough to justify going to 2 pages. Don't add a bunch of stuff to go to 2 pages thinking that makes it look like a stronger document. Those of you that are completing graduate programs, that would be another time where 2 pages might be justified. If you go to 2 pages, make sure you list your name again on the second page. It's important that you have a document that is readable. Employers that are looking at applications say they spend about 20 to 30 seconds scanning through at least their first look at a resume. So with that in mind, I would encourage you to use bullets instead of a paragraph format. It makes it easier for the reader. 10 font size or larger. You don't want someone to have to get out a magnifying glass to read it. Margins generally 1 inch. That being said, your top margin, because it's often your name letterhead, can rise up to about a 1/2 inch margin. Do use some bold and caps and underlining and italics to guide the reader through the document, but don't overuse. These are the general sections on a resume. One of the things that's really helpful for you is to first just pause and brainstorm everything you might list on your resume. In fact, you might keep a master copy of a resume that lists everything you've ever done, and then you're going to pull pieces out for a specific position that you're applying for. One thing that you'll see in the graphic here is we do not encourage you to use a photo on your resume. So you might see samples with that. You'll use photos on LinkedIn, but not on your resume. So let's talk first about your name and contact information. This should be big, bold up at the top, 18, 20, 22 font size for your name. If you're putting it out on a general posting site, I would remove your mailing address just to protect your privacy a little bit. If you're submitting it to a specific company, then of course it's okay to include all of your contact information. If you're actively using LinkedIn, list that URL on your resume. And really what happens is you're going to create a really attractive letterhead at the top that you'll use at the top of a resume and your cover letter, maybe a thank you note and references. Things not to include would be personal information. You don't need your height, weight, age, a picture, hobbies, social interests. We try to stay away from sensitive areas like religion and politics. Try not to be too cute. Don't use I statements. Of course, everything has to be honest and truthful on the resume. Under education, I want you to think about places where you've received a degree. So if you just took a course or two at a community college, you don't need to list that on your resume. Your GPA, if it's above a 3.0, is usually a selling point, so I would include that. And then other things would be highlights. So if you studied abroad, certifications, you're on the dean's list, academic awards. When you list out the College of St. Scholastica, I have listed how it should be formally listed, which is the, and the is capitalized, and then Saint is ST period. After your name and contact information and after your education, the next section generally would be experiences. This is where you're going to think about experiences you've had. You will be using bulleted statements starting with an action verb. You're going to list experiences from the most recent to the least recent. You'll list a city and a state, the dates, but the dates don't need to include, the exact date. It can just be month and year. So January 2018 to February 2020. I generally write out those dates versus using the numeric equivalent. I think it's a little bit easier to read, but that's a preference on my part. For the bullets, you're going to focus on the tasks, what you accomplished, and those transferable skills. Section 2 of this presentation will flush out how to write really effective bulleted statements. As you gain more experiences, I want you to consider dividing your experiences between relevant and other experiences. So for example, if you are going to become a teacher, you might have a section called teaching experience or education experiences or relevant experiences, and then you'd have a supporting area. If you're a social worker, you're going to have a relevant experiences, and it might include times where you've worked serving the public in human services, anytime you're in contact with a particular population, serving in those roles, internships, field experiences, and then you might have an other or supporting category. You will choose your headers, therefore, based on what your groupings are: healthcare experiences, human service experiences, teaching experiences, relevant experiences. Generally, those experiences that fall in this category would have more bullets. You might have 3, 4, 5 bullets. Your other areas might only have 1 or 2 bullets. For those other experiences, it's not that we don't want you to include them, it just will be that you will have less bullets or no bullets. So for example, maybe you work 2 years in construction and a year in the highway department in the summers. Just by seeing that, I know something about you, the hard work ethic, the perseverance in difficult positions. You probably don't need bullets. The flip is, if those are the only jobs you've had so far, then you do want to write bullets for those. So as you gain more experiences in your field, you'll shrink up the supporting experiences and increase the length of the relevant experiences. I want you to think about determine the look that you like. So I'm going to show you several examples here. The first one I like because you can see someone who divided up relevant experiences and supporting experiences. This was a social work major. You can see the first ones were all related to the field. The second were just also really interesting positions, but not as related. I like this one because it's for a younger student who really doesn't have things in their field yet. So they just have one category called experiences. Within here, you can see they really focused on the transferable skills for those jobs. And then they have a list of activities at the end. I like this one because they included conferences and certifications up at the top. Then they have the relevant experiences, supporting experiences, and leadership experiences. So this is a similar one to the first I showed you, just a different grouping, different ways you could group those experiences together. This one I also like. This is someone who is including some relevant courses because it might not be obvious from their major the courses that are related to the position that they're applying for. They also included a study abroad experience. This person also includes to have computer skills at the bottom. It's probably a requirement of the job and they wanted to note that. This particular experience has more white space. This particular resume has more white space on it. Which is great. As you have less experiences, as you gain more experiences, you probably don't want quite as much white space here. So hopefully that's enough to get you started to think about the structure, the format, what you would include, and a few examples of what it will look like once you're done with your resume. Remember, you're not alone. We're here to help you in this process. You can contact me directly if you'd like. I'm at Manders1, M-A-N-D-E-R-S with the number 1 at css.edu. You can email your first draft or set up an appointment through resumes at css.edu or reach out to careers. And again, lots of information on our website to help. Happy writing. Look forward to hearing from you.